So welcome back, and I'm here with Marie Lidén, the director of Electric Malady. Marie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I read a little bit about your film. I think your film is really powerful, and also just personally, I've a family member, had an illness that was not sort of recognized in the country that I come from. So it really hit me hard emotionally. But I hear that it is a personal story for you as well. Is that how you came to the subject of the film?
Yeah, so my mom suffered from electrosensitivity when I was a child. So I kind of from the age of 8 lived with a very limited kind of exposure to electricity. We kind of completely rewired our house and used candles and oil lamps instead of lamps, and yeah, it was quite an unusual childhood, I guess.
And what made you want to come back to that story as a subject, as a theme in your filmmaking?
I was actually getting to the age that my mom was when she developed electrosensitivity, and I started just, I started thinking about it all the time and worrying that, is this genetic? Am I going to get the same thing? And then I was like, actually, this is a really interesting story. But then, like from the beginning, the film was going to be about my experience and my mother's experience, and like the experience of a child looking at an illness like this, and your understanding when you can't really see that someone is ill. And we filmed several characters as well, a child in Canada and kind of teenager in Sweden, another teenager in Sweden. But in the end, it was this William story, and his family story just took up more and more space. And in the end, there was no room for us.
Wow. So it was multiple stories kind of weaved together over sort of a subject, a theme, and then it really then became this personal story. That's incredible. Why William? It was just and how long did you follow that family story? Because I think, like you said, that what really touched me was the relationship that he had with his parents, and the parents' sort of dedication to this, and also ability to joke sometimes or certain ways, and it was really painful. I mean, painful in a but also very sweet as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're incredible. I think they're just such an inspiration for like how to tackle or go through something like this. But I came across their family because I put an ad out in this magazine that goes out to electrosensitive people in Sweden. And I got so many letters. It just poured in. Some people can use internet. So they, I got emails as well, and some phone calls. And then one of those calls was William's dad. And so we spoke a few times on the phone, and then I decided to go and see him. Or William. And then I was really cautious in the beginning because, William looks very extreme. Yeah, and he is, very ill, and the way he looks, like electrosensitives are already really afraid of how they look or how they are seen. So I don't know, was a bit dubious about using William as a character. But then after I just spend like half an hour with him, I was just, I think he's just amazing. He's so, deadpan funny, and he's so gentle and really philosophical in the way he thinks about life. He obviously spends a lot of time by himself thinking about life and memories and love and colors, all these things that he talks about in the film. I just felt like the way he looks and his experience is this kind of metaphor, or you know, really talks about a kind of general experience of that electrosensitives have gone through. Yeah, and his family, I mean, his parents, they're just incredible.
Yeah.
And you really see the pain that comes from being on the outside trying to help someone.
Absolutely.
And the anger, you know, the kind of irritation that comes with that as well. And yeah, I just fell in love with him. Really.
Yeah. And wonderful. How, so interestingly enough, we are reviewing a film that another documentary around subjects on this show. So the idea of subjects in documentaries, and sort of the ethical ideas around sharing someone's story. And I wonder how you felt in sort of approaching someone who's living with this. I think I also saw that in some of the other previous interviews you've done, in terms of the fact that he's not well and in a lot of pain, and you're filming this for quite a long time. How did you approach sort of the idea of telling his story?
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really difficult film to make. First of all, like, because it was really dark for a while. You know, William was really, like, really depressed. Yeah. And, you know, the film talks a lot about suicide as well. And which is, I mean, so hard as a filmmaker to handle as well. You know, I had to, I was speaking to psychiatrists, and, you know, and also it's like, you're like, what kind of film am I making here? Am I making a film about someone who's about to kill themselves, and which is like horrible? And then legally, what does that mean? And also he was, you know, he was using the film as, and he was speaking to me about things that he didn't speak to anyone about.
Wow.
And you know, I don't know, it's really hard to navigate. But you know, it was filmed over a 7-year time, and there was many ups and downs. Now he's in a really good place. But I think, I guess you always have need to think about, like, if are you exploiting your character, like, and it's really hard. And of course, because he was, just our presence with him there in the room had a physical effect on him. Yeah. Which is just this, you know, massive extra weight on those thoughts already. Like, we had to make so many compromises with our equipment, and you know, we were using hand cranked film cameras, and you know, a small DSLR camera was what we could work with. And still, he, you know, after we'd been filming for a long time, he would have to recover. But you know, the whole thing, you know, William really wanted to tell his story, and it was important for him that we did this, no matter how it made him feel. But yeah, it was difficult for that reason, and really, you know, emotionally really hard and stressful sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. To be there, and so sad. I think in a way, you know, he was so open with me from the very beginning, and I think a lot of that, something comes from not being able to see the person that you're speaking to as well. And there were some times when I was so upset, you know, just crying so much, but I managed to kind of hold that away from my voice, and so we just kept talking, even though I was a complete mess, because, you know, he's talking about, yeah, wanting to end his life, and how desperate his situation is. But that didn't affect him telling me things. So in a way, it was a gift of, you know, him being covered. However, that was very hard to get the film funded. You know, people were like, how are we going to relate to someone when we can't see their face? And it is very hard to convince people that.
But that segues well into one question I had, which you did bring a little bit up of the cameras you used, but I just found your film to be incredibly gorgeous, and just the way you shot light and the outside, and and all these details about the world that sort of you need to stop and watch and reflect upon. Yet a lot of the actual action is kind of in this room that was quite, I mean, very depressing and sad and whatnot. So I wondered how you approached the idea of how to tell the story, but also I think yeah, and I guess my second question is, what was the process in terms of selling a film like that? So and how long did it take for you to get it out there in the world?
I mean, the whole process took about 10 years.
Wow.
And really, really hard to fund. I think it's a very controversial subject. It's about an illness, it's not a happy film. And we were, this is my first feature. So I guess I was really inexperienced in listening to myself, or being strong enough, when everyone told me that you need to have science, it needs to be a scientific film, having all these ideas, like it should be, you need this, you need loads of other characters. And then when enough people tell you that, you're like, okay, well, maybe we need to explore that, to see if that's possible. And then it just took us on this, really long journey, just to end up back at the same kind of place that it should be about a family's experience going through this. But yeah, it was really difficult, and I nearly, gave up before we got the final funding to complete the film. I was like, I can't call myself a filmmaker anymore. This is ridiculous. I don't, I can't go on any more of these pitch forums and try to get money for this. And I was so just really ready to give up, and worried I was just flogging this dead horse, and because no one, like, it's just me who's like seeing this incredible story. But yeah, luckily I didn't give up, and but it was not easy.
What I find really interesting as well is that it could, like you said, it could have been a science film. It could have been, I've seen again on different sort of different maladies, different controversial maladies, sort of like a more approach to try to win the audience over and believing the characters. And the actual disease exists or something like that. And I think this is just much more effective because it's a creative film that you really get to know the person, and you believe in the story, and you believe in their pain and their trauma. It's incredible. It's gotten quite a lot of great so thank goodness you did stick through, because it's doing quite well. I think did it premiere at CPH Docs, and now is you're nominated for debut feature award at the BAFTA, so congratulations. How has the process been for yourself as you said, a first-time feature film filmmaker, taking it around and sort of and now that it's done? I mean, that's a different part of the arc of a film, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, the BAFTA nomination was just incredible. I had just never thought that would happen. But it's amazing, and it's amazing for William's family and electrosensitives in general, because it's like, whether or not you believe this is real, there's so many people who suffer from this or think they are suffering from this. So it exists, and people are really suffering, and living in their cars, kind of fleeing the masts. That is real. So yeah, it's incredible. And I was so I thought I was really worried that I was going to get attacked by people, or not attacked, like not physically, but because it's such a toxic subject. And I guess you're always worried when you show your film to people first time. But I don't know. I just thought people were going to get angry, and the response in the UK has been amazing, especially UK. People are really moved by the film, and lots of people have contacted me who, like you were saying, like who've gone through experiences of other invisible illnesses, you know, with ME or fibromyalgia, you know, like these diseases are quite little understood, and that feel so connected to the subject, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
It's bigger than electrosensitivity, you know. It's about long diseases that just go on and on for years and eats up your whole family somehow from the inside. You know, people sacrifice their lives for their family members, and it's like really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And how I think what this story really hits, again, because it feels personal too, is that it's a decade journey of a family, and it's a decade journey of a human's ability to cope and to, you know, and to process pain, because that takes you go through so many different, you know, periods of your life, and times to give up and stuff. And yet I think what's really beautiful about your film is that it does end up on hope. And, you know, I think, you know, didn't seem like it was forced hope, you know, for the end of a film that, you know, is required. It did feel quite hopeful. So I loved that as well. You mentioned 10 years, you know, to get this film out. Also, we previously, before we talked about taking a break even from documentary filmmaking. In my head as a filmmaker, making a film takes a really long time, and it's a lot of dedication, and sometimes you do want to give up on that too. And also, obviously, with subject matters such as this, quite painful. Why do you stick with it? What do you love about it? And do you have a new one planned?
Like I always believed in this story. I felt really strongly about it. And as I say, like it's a kind of universal story of love and hope, and resilience, I guess, you know, like how you manage to go on and on for years. But I'm a really stubborn person. Like I don't really give up. I nearly did in the end, because you know, it's just 10 years of my life, and I was like, I need to move on. I can't just do this anymore. But I think I'm really happy with it. I think it's a really beautiful film. Like I love, you know, the visual style of it, which kind of grew, which also was a very organic, you know, like that came out of the process. And like I loved that. It was like the kind of filmmaking process was dictated by adapting to your subject. And which is really special, I think. But you know, and obviously the best excuse ever to shoot on film, because you're like, well, we have to, because you know, my character can only handle that. But yeah, I am working on something new, which again, I think I'm just really obsessed with subjects that kind of bridges the divide on what we believe in and what we don't. So I've got a new feature project, but it's still just a baby, so I feel a bit too scared of putting it out there in the world yet. But there is something, and you know, hopefully, I was saying this on a panel the other week. I was on this bird's eye view panel and speaking to all the kind of other nominees in my category, and some of them, you know, have done more features, and they say your second feature takes as long. And I was thinking, like, oh my god, Like my next project cannot take another 10 years. But yeah, my mind is only interested in like things that are a bit different. So probably really hard to fund again.
Well, I think, yeah, you're like, as you said, your stubbornness and persistent, it's more persistence really shows. And I love that the filmmaking style came throughout. It's really, again, that a part of it that I I'll watch it again, and hopefully in a cinema. And yeah, because it's really special and a great film. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. And we look forward to seeing the next one when it comes out. But in the meantime, everyone should check out Electric Malady, which is out in cinemas on the 3rd of March, right? In the UK, is that correct?
1st of March in London.
Okay. Thank you again for your time. And it was really lovely chatting with you.
Yeah, lovely talking to you too. Thank you.
Okay.